Hey guys, it's G. So this is going to be the first in a series of videos where I create a painting with a traditional acrylic pouring style like the silicone swipe. And then I'm going to paint over this painting as part of what's going to be 5 paintings that I use for an exhibition. So in this first video, I'm going to talk about how to mix the paints for the silicone swipe style. And I'll go into great detail about what medium I'm using and what sort of medium you can replace it with if this is not something that you have in the country you're in. So I like to use gloss varnish that is made for changing the sheen of interior paint. So let me walk you through that. When you get house paint, you can decide whether you want it matte, you want it satin, you want gloss, high gloss, semi-gloss. So let's say you've painted your walls matte and you decide you want them glossy. The way to do that is you would use this type of gloss, which if you can see out of the can is very, very thick, almost as thick as house paint itself. And you would paint that on with a roller as you would house paint. Now, what's great about this kind of varnish is it's much thicker than varnishes, even the water-based ones that are made for wood or, artist grade varnish. It accepts a lot of water before its binders start breaking down because it itself is a binder. You can think of its composition like glue. So what I do is I use this as a base out of the tub and then add water to it, depending on the technique. And I've used this in everything from a Dutch pour all the way on the opposite end of the consistency spectrum, which is the bloom technique. It works for everything. You just need to get it to the consistency that you need, and also factor in, which is really important, the volume of paint that you're adding, because the paint will also thicken it up. Okay, so I measure my recipes by weight, not by their volume. So I go 3 parts of this varnish to 1 part water to 1 part paint. Now what that means is, if you're not familiar with the term parts, it means, so the total of the parts is 5. Divide by 5 to get 1 unit. Or let's say that in a different way. If you want to make 50 grams of paint, of a mixture for acrylic pouring, that would consist of 30 grams of varnish, 10 grams of water, 10 grams of paint. Okay? Now, if you don't have a varnish that is this thick, and I'll show you the thickness, the consistency of the pouring medium, i.e. the varnish and the water, before the paint. I'll show that to you in the video. But you can easily replicate this recipe with float roll, for example. You just go maybe 2 parts float roll or 3 parts float roll to 1 part paint. And I'm talking about US float roll, of course, not the Australian one. So if you noticed, the pouring medium, which is essentially what the varnish and water together is very runny. It doesn't leave a mound off the stick, and I mean, you have some wiggle room when it comes to the swipe technique. It can be slightly runnier, it can be slightly thicker, because silicone is notoriously good at creating cells. And now, as we add the colors, it'll thicken up just a bit, because these acrylic paints are the thickest component. They're thicker than the actual varnish out of the tub. So I'm weighing out about 200 grams of the pouring medium, and then, which would constitute 4 parts, 3 parts varnish and 1 part water, and then add to that what would be 50 grams of paint to round out the 5 parts. Now, the reason I like this gloss varnish very much is, you can see it looks white right now, but it dries crystal clear. Like, it almost like if all your paints are mixed with this varnish, when the painting is dry, it looks like it's already been varnished. You should still coat it in another layer, but it will make the paints that are usually out of the tube. Most acrylic paints are matte, and that kind of dulls the colors a little too much. The gloss varnish also keeps the colors brighter. They do start to pale as you mix them, but they will set darker. So the colors I've chosen for this painting are a mid-yellow, a magenta, and you may have noticed I added a little bit of red to the magenta because the magenta is a little too transparent and it needed the more opaque red in there to help it out. And then I'm gonna use a crimson red and a violet. And I decided to leave orange out because the orange paint I have is very opaque and will get a little bit too much orange in the painting. And it doesn't really matter. We have red, we have magenta, and we have yellow. We're gonna get orange by just the action of swiping. So in terms of where I'm gonna add the silicone, I'm not gonna add any silicone here at the moment. This cup will be used, or these cups will be used to cover the canvas, and we'll go through the actual painting and the swipe in the next video. The silicone will be added after I pour a base layer, so we don't have any paint touching the canvas directly. If you're not familiar with why we do that, it's because silicone, because it's an oil, and it's hydrophobic, will repel any water content. So as it dries, you'll wind up with these craters where it could even be like white, the color of the canvas. And I'm mixing a black because the black is going to be my swipe color, but the black will be the only color without silicone. So more on that in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. This was G. Don't forget to check out the next video in the series to see the actual swipe technique on the big canvas. I'm going to be painting on a 50 by 90 centimeter canvas, so check that out.